Dermot Corrigan, a very good morning to you. How are things?
Pretty good, on. How's it there?
All good, all good. So I presume it's been a suitably calm and composed reaction from the Madrid media to last night's result.
Yeah, more a shock than anything else, really. Because at one point in the game, it wasn't a great game. I guess the first half wasn't so exciting last night, pretty tense. But then when Madrid went ahead, the mood in the stadium was great. You know, the fans were singing "We're the Kings of Europe." Madrid started to play some nice stuff. And then the last 50 minutes, it just all fell apart. City scored twice, could have scored more. Ramos was sent off. And everybody, the Madrid journalists here, the fans in the stadium, the journalists as well in the press room, and people talking to this morning, everybody's just really disappointed. Maybe not completely surprised because, you know, this Madrid team is not as good as a couple of years ago, but just very, very down at how it ended.
In terms of the surprise, I guess there has been a tone around Madrid at the moment that perhaps they aren't what they were once at, and I think that's a fact, actually. It's not just an opinion. But at the same time, I'm sure there's an opinion out there today that you have to use the tools at your disposal. Tony Kroos is one of those tools.
Yeah, it was a very strange one. We kind of expected Guardiola to come up with a surprise in his starting 11. He likes to throw maybe an unusual lineup in for these big games, to have a special plan for it. Didn't expect Zidane to also do that. And Kroos has been, you know, really important for them. He's the guy who sets the tempo for the team. He's the guy who always has most passes in the game, who kind of organises their play. So to see him out of the game completely was a big surprise. Zidane afterwards said it was just a technical decision. He didn't want to get into it, but there's no injury involved. And that of the decisions from Zidane, that's the big one that stands out this morning.
Is there any theories out there as to what the technical decision was?
Well, one theory, my theory, I guess, is that Zidane, he wanted more physical guys in midfield. He had Casemiro there to hold in front of the defence, and then he wanted the rest of them to get forward, to put pressure on City, to try and play the game in City's half, to disrupt City. And Valverde is very good at that, who came into the team in the centre. He's, you know, much more athletic. He's got more energy maybe than Kroos. He gets around the pitch a lot more, and he can get in the way of City's ball players. Isco as well, you know, he scored the goal in the end, and maybe Zidane wanted Isco and Modric to be up around the City box to try and create something there, and he didn't want Kroos to play the game at Kroos's pace. That's one theory. It didn't work out so well for Madrid in the end, but maybe that's what Zidane was thinking. Yeah,
perhaps Zidane was focusing on the wrong area of the pitch, because you look at Pep Guardiola's comments in the aftermath, and he says that we played a proper striker because of the way they defend. They are so aggressive through the middle, and when that happens, you have to make the pitch wide. Ramos, Varane, Casemiro, they win these balls. Incredible. It was almost as if he gave up that area of the pitch, in certain areas of central midfield anyway, and just attacked down the wings. Obviously, we saw that with Gabriel Jesus playing as a left wing back. Did Zidane get out-thought in that respect? Did he not expect to see what's coming from Manchester City in the wide channels, and did he react properly to that tactic from Guardiola?
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear Guardiola talk quite at length about how he'd watched, you know, 10 games of Madrid during when he was supposed to be on his mid-season break, that he spent it analysing Madrid and coming up with a plan. Because, you know, when his starting 11 were on the pitch, or for up until the 75th minute, you know, it wasn't working out. They were 1-0 down. It was when Sterling came on. It was when De Bruyne came deeper, and Gabriel Jesus scored the goal from a centre-forward position, not from out on the wing. So maybe Guardiola was very happy to have beaten Madrid. Obviously, as an ex-Barcelona player and coach, to win at the Bernabeu was huge for him, and he talked a lot about his plans and everything. But I don't know really whether it was Guardiola's plan, or whether it was just City's just much better players and much better energy at the end of the game that won it for them.
Yeah, I'd kind of definitely lean towards the latter of your two arguments there, for sure, because like he comes with this pragmatic approach, this 4-4-2, and really what actually wins them the game is when they shift approach, when they're 1-0 down. And of course, you know, I saw what was the opposite stat last night, that Real Madrid haven't had, it was their fewest shots in the first half of a home Champions League match since November 2013 against Galatasaray. So 3 shots in the first half. So in fairness, Guardiola's pragmatic approach worked in that regard, but actually going out and winning the game came from a bit of a tactical shift, and as you say, Jesus through the middle.
Yeah, the impression that got maybe from the game was that Guardiola set up to defend against Madrid. He would have been happy enough maybe with the 0-0, or maybe he thought he would be able to nick it late on. But Madrid were just maybe there for the taking a little bit. And when they did start to push, it was like pushing against an open door. Madrid started to make mistakes. You know, Carvajal, awful challenge for the penalty. Ramos was at fault for the first goal. Then he gave away he got sent off as well. That Madrid are, you know, Zidane Guardiola had said, how strong Madrid's defence are and everything. But actually, when they did attack them, Madrid kind of fell apart a little bit at the end.
Is Sergio Ramos still revered? Is this Real Madrid defence getting the full backing of confidence from supporters at the moment?
Yeah, Sergio Ramos he's such a huge character, and he's such a huge part of Madrid's club's history, Spain's history with winning the World Cup and the Euros, and he's club captain, and he's such an influential guy. He's even part of, everybody knows him in Spain, even if you're not a football fan, he's part of Spain. So to criticise him is very difficult here, and a lot of the local journalists shy away from it. They prefer maybe to focus on somebody else making mistakes. But he's not had a good couple of years. Remember last year when he got himself booked deliberately to miss the second leg against Ajax, and then was watching in the stands as being filmed for a documentary as his team went out. This season he's made a lot of mistakes. Like at the drew 2-2 against Celta Vigo at home a couple of weeks ago, he was at fault for the late goal in that game. Even last night, early on in the game, he miscued a clearance to Jesus who might have scored. He almost scored an own goal at just that corner before halftime. There's a scramble on the line. One of his teammates had to help him out there, and then he was involved in the first goal and then sent off. So people are starting to point the finger a little bit. You just can't help but point the finger at him because he was just so bad, I guess. But still, he has that little bit of protection. Maybe like someone like John Terry in England, who as national captain and as such a big figure, tended not to get criticised quite as much as maybe he deserved.
Yeah, and I guess there's probably a statistical shield for Sergio Ramos as well. If you look at the defence as a whole for Real Madrid this season, nobody has conceded less goals than them in La Liga so far. Is that sort of a false stat that can sum up where Real Madrid are at defensively?
Yeah, I think they have played really they've been very cagey in all of their big games. Like the Clásico before Christmas at the Camp Nou was 0-0. Neither team looked great in that game, and both teams were really focused on not making mistakes and not letting the other team counterattack against them. And against Atletico Madrid, have kept a couple of clean sheets as well and beat them in the league. But I think this has been coming, that Zidane was doing his best with the team that he had to try and make them as compact as possible, or to try and get the most out of the team, because he doesn't have the attacking stars that he had before. So they're conceding less goals, they're scoring a lot less goals as well, and Zidane did his best to get them this far. But as you said at the start, it's not the Madrid of a couple of years ago. Their best players are either a lot older or have left. So yeah, the defensive stats do look good, but when it came down to it last night, they weren't able to deal with City's attack.
Marca saying this morning that Eden Hazard is the only world-class, truly top player that this club has in its ranks now, and it cites transfer market as a couple of reasons why Manchester City are far ahead of Real Madrid at the moment, if you just look at transfer valuation and all that sort of thing. I presume this is something that Madrid are looking to address this summer. They probably have a hit list of targets, because this is what Real Madrid do, even though last summer, despite Hazard and the lack of luck he's had with his fitness, it was a fairly prolific summer last summer.
Yeah, they've had a couple of years of trying to bring in new players, trying to bring in younger players to refresh the team, and finding it difficult, partly because it's so hard to get rid of the guys that they have. Like Bale, they'd love to move him on, but nobody will take him because of his wages. It was very interesting to see that Raheem Sterling interview in the Spanish media here last week, where he posed with the Madrid jersey and then claimed that he was delighted to be at City for the moment if that Champions League ban does happen. And after last night, he impressed everybody when he came on, winning that penalty. He'd be a guy who you could see Madrid going for, and for sure whenever things go badly at Madrid, then the reflex action from the president Florentino Perez is to try and spend some money to get some more big name players in. And I'd expect that. Well, they could always come back. We're talking a bit as if they've been knocked out, and maybe they will come back in the second leg, because they do still have lots of experience and lots of talent in the team. Looks unlikely, but if they do go out, then yeah, they'll spend.
Just on Barcelona then, Dermot, is it possible for them to win this competition without Luis Suarez?
It's going to be difficult as well. Like I would say, any team that has Leo Messi in it has a chance to win any game. He's head and shoulders above everybody in Spain for sure at the moment, and we'll see in Europe. But I wouldn't rule out any team with Messi in it. But apart from that, they similar enough to Madrid in that their best players have got older. Suarez is injured. That's a kind of wear and tear issue that he's been through so much. Same with Piqué, Busquets, the guys who've held them together for so many years. So both Madrid and Barca, you'd have to say that they're great teams of a couple of years ago when the Clásico was amazing, and pretty much the World 11 you could pick between the two teams. It seemed like, or from our perspective here in Spain, that's what it seemed like anyway. That doesn't happen anymore. They have a couple of good players who are coming down from their peak, and the best players are maybe elsewhere now.
It might take a little while for a Clásico encounter like we have this weekend to sort of get the full global attention, potentially. I see what you're saying, but at the same time, the fact that we were seeing Real Madrid and Barcelona in a slight bit of decline, there's almost more of an interest in that because it increases the stakes this weekend. It's a must-win game at the Bernabeu on Sunday night for both teams.
Yeah, it's huge. For Zidane especially, because of how last night went. If they were to lose again against Barcelona at the weekend, then he would be in big trouble. They'd be 4 points off. They'd have lost. It'd be 3 defeats in a week for them, which would be pretty bad for them. Barca as well. They sacked their coach already, so Quique Setién just came in. He's difficult for him. He's trying to implement a new style of play, trying to get the players to understand his pretty complicated concepts on how the game should be played. So neither team are coming into it in great form. Whoever wins will get a huge boost out of it. Winning the Clásico is going to, propel them forward maybe over the rest of the season. But whoever loses, it's going to be a tricky, especially if it's Madrid and they're out of the Champions League and they're out of the La Liga race. It's going to be another very tricky couple of months as we go towards the end of the season. You mentioned Quique Setién's fairly complicated theories on how to play the game. Perhaps if he uncomplicated it and just got Messi the ball more and made him the very centre point of everything that they do, things might take an upturn in results, especially without Suarez in the fold? Yeah, it's basically, that's what happens at Barca. Even no matter what coach comes in and tries to work his concept. We've seen it with Setién, even from over the 6 weeks or so he's been in the team, that he's had to refine his ideas or be a little bit less ambitious with the changes that he makes. But Barca are turning into a little bit like Argentina when we saw them at the World Cups, where everybody wants to give Messi the ball. The opposition know it as well. So often there'll be like 4 or 5 players around Messi, and there is space elsewhere for people to exploit. And Messi's very good at drawing everybody towards him and then clipping a ball over the top to somebody else. But they don't have the talent around him that they did before. And, we saw Napoli the other night. They managed to shut down Barca really well. They had got players around Messi, made it very tight. Barca had no shots on target in the first half of the game, only a couple over the course of the game. They got out of it. Griezmann scored and they're looking like they'll go through. But again, it's Messi is great, but whether he's great enough to be able to pull the whole team through the way that he couldn't with Argentina, maybe he can't with Barca either. Yeah, well, plenty of theories and plenty of storylines going into Sunday night. Listen, Dermot Corrigan, thanks a million for taking the call. Cool. Cheers on.